start by doing what's necessary, and then you do what's possible, and pretty soon, you're doing the impossible. And this is what I live by every day. You know, sometimes when something just seems so ginormous that it's impossible to even tackle it, I break it down into little pieces, and I know that all I've got to do is start.
Some of the big takeaways was just all the new people I've met, and like I've made tons of contacts with people, and I've been invited back out to Blythe to come anytime to just come out and see. I've actually got to go to different farms and see how they're doing things and how I can improve my own farm back home. And I've been invited out to all over Canada just to come view things. So it's just the biggest thing I had was just coming away with new ideas on new ways of approaching something and approaching your problems, as well as having more people that you can communicate with and bounce ideas off of on how they make our newer global markets with products. Because a lot of these people all of them have different skill sets, so just having access to talk to these people with these different skill sets is just amazing, really.
People don't understand that flax is linen. So when they have their linen shirt, they do not know that it came from a flax plant. So there's a huge education piece there. And then they don't believe that there's a market. So because they've never known of that market before, because we've never participated in the market of yarn for clothing production, then it's like, what? I mean, if we're talking about export for carrots, or if we're talking about export for IT products, then they know about that, but this isn't something that they know about. So that's been my hardest part, is that people don't really believe me yet, but they are now, I think. They're starting to believe me now.
So my next little thing that I live by is the only strategy that's guaranteed to fail is not taking risks. This one's kind of hard for me sometimes. I'm married to somebody that it's not as hard for, so not as hard. So I do really believe, though, that if you've got a plan, you've got to be able to take the risk to sometimes step out and do it.
What I keep finding over my 45, 46, 50-year experience of trying to invent theater and tell stories, people still have a need to go into a room and share a live experience. I don't know anybody who doesn't have a library of books. I don't think I do. And in fact, I'm not sure I want to know the person that doesn't have a library of books. And in fact, what I want to do is to see what book is next to which person. And I actually get a thrill out of, seeing, say, Margaret Atwood next to the Marquis de Sade. That's very interesting. Okay.
I think R2R was able to bring together different people from across the world, and it helped us in hearing different examples. Sometimes you think, oh, can our community do this? And when you hear somebody from Alberta, or you hear somebody from the States or in Europe talk about their community experiencing the same problems, but this was their solution, it gives you that confidence to believe that, one, we're not alone, and two, somebody else has experienced this and done it and have been successful. So let's look at their model and see what we can bring home and tweak it a little bit for our community and be successful as well. So it gives us that courage that, we can change, we can do good.
Maybe I'll use example of, again, for the podcast I interviewed Michael Crummy, and I asked him about how do you write about rural, because his latest novel, Sweetland, was about a community called Sweetland in the south shore of Newfoundland Island, some of the most isolated rural communities in the Western world, some of them still accessible only by boat, right? And it was a story of relocation and resettlement. And for those of you who don't know, Newfoundland still has on its books the resettlement policy. 90% of the community has to agree to resettle, and then government provides a certain amount of compensation per household for people to abandon the community, but they have to write their land over to the government. So he wrote this book, and it was entirely possible to write one more Newfoundlandian novel of, isn't it sad, rural Newfoundland is disappearing, right? But he didn't. He wrote a story about this old man who refuses to sign this piece of paper, but the community is small, so his voice matters. And when he has good internet access, he plays online poker and watches pro wrestling shows from the 80s. And it added strength to that novel, and it made all of us who don't live in those communities realize that they are modern, they are connected, they are in many ways just like us, and maybe the way we think of them is unfair.
But for me, it's really important to have goals. I'm extremely goal-oriented in my personal life, in my business, with my family, everything. And so in our business, it's important for us to have something that's able to guide those goals.